Good morning from Wiesbaden, Germany. My name is Billy Reinsteiler, and this morning I will be discussing the Irish Revolution, specifically looking at how historians have defined this period. Words have meaning, and defining terms and periods in history can be problematic or challenging. In this week's discussion post, I used the Oxford Online Scholarship Database and Project Muse to find several articles about how historians have described the Irish Revolution. Early 20th century Irish history involves a series of conflicts, which eventually came to be called the Irish Revolution, or Irish Revolutionary period. This typically includes the 1916 Easter Rising, 1919 to 1921 Anglo-Irish War, Irish War of Independence, and the 1922 to 1923 Irish Civil War. However, some historians have looked at expanded dates, including the Land War of 1879 to the 1870s and 1880s, the Ulster Crisis of 1912 to 14, and potentially the 1913 Dublin Lockout, amongst other events during this time. In his article, How Revolutionary Was the Irish Revolution, which I located using Project Muse, Mark Mulholland, examines how the term Irish Revolution came about. He argues that there's not broad agreement among historians about this term, and that there's ambiguity about its use. He states the term did not really see prevalence until the 1960s to 80s, and among historians during this time, it was more common to hear the term Irish Troubles. However, he goes on to look at it categorically, looking at an ideal type revolution, which he categorizes by the following: a state breakdown under pressure of international events, the eruption of the masses into the political arena, class conflict, mutual radicalization of revolution and reaction, moderation to radicalization and leadership, coercion to create constituencies, purging of the state apparatus, significant transformation in the mode of production, or at least property allocation, and the establishment of a new dominant ideology. And he applies these categories to Irish history, looking at the Irish Revolutionary period to determine whether or not it can be really called a revolution. He ultimately concludes that although there are some aspects of the period roughly 1912 to 1923 which resemble a revolution, it is not a revolution in his view. In a similar vein, Francis Flanagan's book Remembering the Revolution, Dissent, Culture, and Nationalism in the Irish Free State, which I found on Oxford Online Scholarship Online, this book examines how the Irish Revolution was remembered in the first 2 decades of Irish independence. Flanagan views the memories of the Revolution through the lens of 4 authors who were themselves nationalists prior to the 1916 Easter Rising, namely I. Mary Duffy, P.S. O'Hagerty, George Russell, and Desmond Ryan. Looking at their lives, Flanagan concludes that the concept of an Irish Revolution was not cut and dry, and these 4 participants had very different views after the fact. Finally, in the article Afterimage of the Revolution, Kevin O'Higgins and the Irish Revolution, Jason Kinnerk examines the memory of Kevin O'Higgins, who was a member of Cumann na Gael, and how historians have viewed him as a counter-revolutionary. Jason Kinnerk argues that this term counter-revolutionary is problematic and ill-defined. If someone is against a revolution, is that not another revolution, and so on. So it becomes a bit problematic. So he discusses the centrality of self-determination to O'Higgins' political viewpoint, wherein O'Higgins argues that Ireland and the Irish people had a right to determine their own fate. And he concludes that the concept of counter-revolutionary is not a helpful addition to the historiography on the period of Irish history. So thank you for listening to this brief discussion post.